Hey everyone, I hope you're having a great day. Now, today's news story is going to be a lengthy op-ed because it's a very heated topic here in East Asia, and I thought I'd take some time to really explain it in a lot of detail. And this concerns the notion of why many Koreans continue to ask for Japan to apologize for what happened during the colonial period and World War II. So let me just set the stage here. As soon as a politician, in this case, which kind of sparked me to talk about this, on March 1st, President Park Geun-hye made her first official speech, her first major official speech as the new president of South Korea. And in that speech, she called for Japan to fully acknowledge what it did during the colonial period and to apologize. And as soon as that happened, many people from Japan said, "Oh my gosh, not again. Why does Korea keep on asking for an apology? We've done it so many times. We're done with it." On the other hand, Koreans picked up on that and echoed, "Yes, Japan must apologize," and began citing a whole bunch of reasons of why Japan must apologize. And those that are really not familiar with the situation, whether they're just expats here in the region that are new to it, or maybe they live elsewhere outside of Asia, sometimes don't understand why this is such a heated topic, and one that really gets both nationals really involved and hot-blooded, shall we say. So what is the deal? Well, let me explain a little bit. For someone to say that Japan has never apologized for what happened during World War II would be a gross misstatement. Japan has apologized several times. And if you click the link associated with this video and go over to chiranger.com, you'll see the entire written op-ed, and there are links to all the sources that I'm going to be speaking about here. So Japan has apologized more than 50 times since the end of the Second World War. And in fact, the best I can find out is that the last formal apology by Japan occurred in April 2012 by the Japanese ambassador to the Philippines. And he said, "I also hereby express our heartfelt apologies and deep sense of remorse for the tragedy." Now, again, that was 2012. Now, for individuals here in Korea to state that Japan has never apologized to Korea, that would also be inaccurate. And a lot of times people in Japan state that the first apology was in 1965 at the signing of the bilateral agreement, and that necessarily wasn't true. But the 1965 bilateral agreement between Korea and Japan is very profound, because in that statement, Japan acknowledged full responsibility and full ownership of everything that happened during the colonial period and World War II, and basically said, "We are sorry, we apologize, but more importantly, here's money." And a lot of times people in Korea say, "No, we never got any money from Japan," and that would be inaccurate. In documents that were released, I believe in 2006, it has been announced by the Korean government that since the end of the war, almost $800 million has been received from various organizations in Japan specifically related to the colonial period and World War II. So, Japan has apologized, and they have paid money for it. And in terms of legality, that 1965 agreement is pretty much binding. That is a formal declaration of apology and act of remorse by the nation of Japan. But if that's the case, why is Korea still asking for apologies? And in my opinion, and this is my opinion, there's really three main areas that haven't been satisfied to Koreans and many others in Asia. So I'd like to address that right now. So number one, that's really the tone of the apologies. So let me give you two examples. The first one can be shown, essentially it's this. Japan will make a statement, and then at some point later, there's another statement or action that many Koreans feel negates that apology that says it's essentially a take back. You say you're sorry and then you take it back. You do an action and then you mitigate that or negate it. So you're left feeling that the apology is without merit, it's without feeling, you really don't mean it. And as I've said in another video, that the intention of an apology is twofold. One, you need to say the words, and two, you need to do it in a way that is meaningful for the recipient. Because if you're not saying that you're sorry and you mean it, the recipient knows that, and it's just all for show. So here are two examples that Koreans often cite as ways that they feel that the apologies they receive from Japan are insincere. Number one, let's take the comfort woman. These are the sexual slaves by the Japanese military that were widespread beginning around 1930 so in China, then spread across the imperial conquered nations during World War II. In 1993, Cabinet Chief Secretary Yohei Kono said, "Undeniably, this was an act with the involvement of the military authorities of the day that severely injured the honor and dignity of many women. The government of Japan would like to take this opportunity once again to extend its sincere apologies and remorse to all those, irrespective of place of origin, who suffered immeasurable pain and incurable physical and psychological wounds as comfort women." Now, that is a great apology. It acknowledges responsibility and essentially says, you're sorry. And that is a great statement and goes hand in hand with the money that Japan paid in 1965. However, in recent years, most notably by current Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, he's gone out and said, well, yes, there were sexual slaves. Yes, there were comfort women. Yes, there were human rights violations. But there's really no proof that the Japanese military were involved in any way, shape, or form. And that is seen by many as an apology and a take-back, and a sign that the government of Japan and those that are leading the country are not remorseful, do not regret the actions of Japan during the colonial period and World War II. A second area of an apology and a take-back is not only viewed as an issue here in Korea, but pretty much all of Asia. And that surrounds Japan's continued use of the rising sun flag. Now that is the sign, the symbol of the self-defense force in Japan. Now to put this in context, if you're not in the area, let's look at Europe. So Nazi Germany had the swastika. And if you show someone the swastika who's familiar with the European theater of war during World War II, they instantly associate Nazi Germany, hate, war crimes, wanton destruction. When you look at the rising sun flag here in Asia, those that were inflicted upon by Japan during the imperial expansion of the empire, that's how they view that flag. They view the rising sun flag as a symbol of hate, as a symbol of destruction, of a symbol of oppression, and a symbol that people are committing war crimes. So to have Japan in the 21st century use that same symbol for their military today sends the message, or I shouldn't say they send the message, but it's interpreted as we are proud of our military and we don't care about the past. And that is directly opposite of the words, we apologize for the crimes that people committed during World War II. So again, it's seen as an apology was issued and then something negates it. Many critics of Japan say if Japan was truly apologetic for the crimes committed by the military during World War II, they would not be using the same symbol that started that oppression. And so they are calling for Japan to follow the lead of Germany. So that's one area. Take-backs is what people like to call them. Number two, in terms of area that people feel that Japan really hasn't issued an appropriate apology, concerns the origin of the apologies, shall we say. So since the end of the war, all the apologies have come from state-level officials, prime ministers, cabinet members, ambassadors, saying that the state of Japan is apologetic for what it took place, and they take responsibility. And if you were to look at that in modern times, that seems appropriate. The government of Japan making the statement. However, in the minds of many people, that is the wrong place for the apology to be issued. And I say that because during the colonial period and during World War II, it was the Emperor of Japan that was the head of state. The Emperor of Japan was the head of the government and the head of the military arm. So an apology being issued by any organization from Japan other than the Emperor is seen as a third party issuing the statement and not the responsible party. So it comes down to people wanting to hear the apology coming directly from the Emperor. So that's an important distinction there. So people really want to hear the words, "I'm sorry, I take responsibility," from the Emperor of Japan. Now, if you were to say that the Emperor of Japan has never made an apology, you'd be wrong. Now, in 1984, Emperor Hirohito, who was the emperor during the colonial period and World War II, issued the following statement to Korean President Chun Doo-hwan. "It is indeed regrettable that there was an unfortunate past between us for a period in this century, and I believe it should not be repeated again." Now, critics say that this really isn't an apology, that the use of the words "the past is regrettable" doesn't take any ownership of what took place in Korea, that the destruction here, the comfort women issue, the war crimes committed, it doesn't acknowledge that or take responsibility. So many people don't view that as a real apology. Now, this was followed up a few years later by current emperor and Hirohito's sons, Akihito, in 1996. "There was a period when our nation brought to bear great sufferings upon the people of the Korean Peninsula. The deep sorrow that I feel over this will never be forgotten." And again, people say that that's really not an apology. There's no acceptance of responsibility in terms of what Japan did or what his father issued in terms of orders to be carried out here in Korea. So they feel that it just falls short, that they're just empty words, that there is no sense of remorse, no sense of responsibility. Now, this gets a little bit sticky because in 1948, there was a speech that Emperor Hirohito had commissioned. Now, he never gave the speech. That was uncovered a few years ago, and again, the link is in the blog article. And in this speech, Emperor Hirohito was going to go out and make a formal apology, accept responsibility for everything, acknowledge everything, express deep sorrow, express deep shame for what happened during World War II. But the interesting thing is that that apology wasn't geared towards the people around the world. It wasn't geared towards Koreans. It wasn't geared towards Chinese or people in Southeast Asia. It was geared towards the people of Japan for allowing Japan to lose the war and become, at that time, a very deprived state in terms of having all the bombing and all the American occupation there. This was going to be in 1948, as I said. So when you read the speech and you read the tone of the speech, it gives the air that Emperor Hirohito was only sorry for losing the war and nothing else that happened during his reign. So that's the second thing. The third thing is actually with the Emperor of Japan. Now, according to the Imperial Constitution, the Emperor of Japan was the end-all be-all. He was the extreme head of state. He was it. He was the top official. Nothing could be done in Japan without his knowledge, without his blessing. He was also the head of the military. So people view, again, apology not coming from him as not the right source. So, but they also view Emperor Hirohito as a war criminal, and they feel that he should have been tried as such. Now, the view, I'm quoting here, the view promoted by both the Japanese Imperial Palace and the American occupation forces after World War II portrayed Emperor Hirohito as a powerless figurehead behaving strictly according to protocol. And that comes from Wikipedia. And they basically said that he was a puppet of the military and that he had no control. Now, examining the constitution of Japan at the time, it really is hard for a lot of people to acknowledge that someone could be elevated to the status of emperor and not be able to control everything. Now, their people are also saying that one of the reasons that why Hirohito wasn't tried for war crimes was because the American occupation forces under General MacArthur were concerned that if the emperor was tried, if he was convicted, if he was killed, executed for war crimes, that it could create a sense of civil unrest that no one had seen before. And they cite examples of the mass suicides in Saipan and the orders issued for Okinawans to commit suicide rather than receive benefit from the American occupying forces at the time. So they were really worried that if the emperor was tried and convicted, that millions of Japanese would commit suicide and just cause a whole bunch of problems. So was in fact Hirohito a war criminal? That goes back to the crux of the issue. Now, many historians have uncovered documents that Emperor Hirohito had first-hand knowledge of the war crimes being committed by Unit 731. They just did horrible human experiments. And at least on 5 different occurrences, he personally ordered the use of biological weapons in China. And those, of course, would constitute war crimes. So, The essence of this is that many feel in South Korea that the emperor got off scot-free, that justice simply hasn't been served. You have a person who was a war criminal and he didn't have to face up to it. He got to live out his life. Herbert Bix says, MacArthur's truly extraordinary measures to save Hirohito from trial as a war criminal had a lasting and profoundly distorting impact on the Japanese understanding of the lost war. So again, those are the 3 issues or the 3 reasons why many Koreans feel that Japan still needs to apologize. So what does this all mean in 2013? Well, let me just say this out here. Japan has apologized many, many times, and I believe legally that the 1965 bilateral agreement really absolves Japan from doing anything more. They have apologized in writing as a state to state, Japan to Korea. They have paid reparations for all crimes and damages carried out from 1910 to 1945. And that pretty much absolves them of all responsibility. It's not Japan's fault that the Korean government didn't distribute the money appropriately. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about Koreans, the average person on the street. Why do they always want Japan to apologize? And again, I think it goes back to wanting that apology from the Emperor of Japan and for Japan to stop essentially taking back things. So this is what I think that the Korean people and the Korean government should do. Number 1, rather than continuously asking for an apology, you craft one document, you craft one statement in which you just simply state why you think Japan needs to issue an apology, what that apology needs to include, and who you need to hear that apology from. You make that statement, and then you put the issue to bed. You wait until that statement comes from whoever you need to hear it from, and you don't bring it up again. Continuously asking for an apology puts you in a position of weakness. By clearly stating, this is what we need to make things right, and letting it go, puts you in a position of strength. The other party will choose either to honor that request or not. Someone cannot make someone else apologize. They have to want to do it on their own accord. If Japan truly feels that the 1965 bilateral agreement absolves them from ever apologizing again, then that's their own accord. You may feel differently, But legally, I think they have a strong case for that. So rather than wasting tons and tons of energy trying to get Japan to apologize again and again and again, it's just wasted energy. You don't need to put emphasis on that. You just need to make one last statement, say what you need to make things right, and let it be at that. That's all there is to it. So if you have any questions, please drop it down in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about this. And also, again, surfing over to chiranger.com, you can get all the links to all the documents that I referenced in this video. All right, see you next time.